Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivajakacarya Ashtottara Shuddha Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jayam Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivajakacarya Ashtottara Shuddha Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavind ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Prem se Kaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की गंगा माई की यमुना माई की तुलसी देवी की भक्ति देवी की समवेत भक्तवृंद की all glories to Saint Madhuri Hare Krishna all glories to Saint Madhuri Hare Krishna all glories to Saint Madhuri Hare Krishna all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga all glories to Srila Prabhupada Radha Krishna Prashtapata Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swamin Iti Namine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Okay, reading from 2.7.41 Okay, somebody want to put this up? Turn that TV on. Okay, word for, we're going to go through each word. Nantang Vidamya Aham Ami Munayo Grajaste Maya Balasya Purushasya Kuto Vara Ye Gayan Gunan Dasha Shatanana Adidevaha Sesho Dhunapi Samavasyati Nasya Param 41 2.7.41 Okay, so Nantam Vidyamyaham Ami Munayo Grajaste Maya Balasya Purushasya Kuto Varaye Gayan Gunandasha Satanana Adidevaha शेषोऽधुनापि संवस्यति नास्य पारम् नान्तं विदम्यहम् अमी मुनयो ग्रजास्ते माया गुणन्दश शतानन आदिदेवः. Sorry, I skipped it. Maya balasya purushasya kuto varaye Gayan gunandasha satananan adidevaha Seshodhunapi samavasyati nasya param Nantang vidamyaham ami munayo grajaste Maya balasya purushasya kuto varaye Gayan gunandasha satanana adidevaha Seshodhunapi samvasyati nasya param. Please repeat. Deva param. Mataji's? Gajaste. Okay, so na, never, antam, end, vidami, do I know, aham, myself, ami, and all those, munayaha, great sages, agrajaha, born prior to you, te, you, maya balasya, of the omnipotent, purushasya, of the personality of Godhead, kutaha, or to speak of others, varaha, born after us, ye, those, gayan, by singing, gunan, the qualities, dashashata, ananaha, one who has 1,000 faces, adidevaha, the first incarnation of the Lord, seshaha, known as Sesha. Adhuna, until now, api, even, samavasyati, can achieve, na, not, asya, of him, param, limit. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation: neither I nor all the sages born before you know fully the omnipotent personality of Godhead. What can others who are born after us know about Him? Even the first incarnation of the Lord, namely Sesha, has not been able to reach the limit of such knowledge. Although he is describing the qualities of the Lord with 1,000 faces. Purport: the omnipotent personality of Godhead has three primary potencies, namely the internal, external, and marginal potencies, with unlimited expansions of these three energies. As such, the expansion of his potencies can never be calculated by anyone, because even the personality regarded himself as the incarnation of Sesha cannot estimate the potencies, although he has been describing them continuously with 1,000 faces. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalake Chakshurunnitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rubhakadam Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shitapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savaditam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vijakan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavane Sure Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpataruvishya Kripa Sindhu Dhyavacha Patitanam Pavani Vya Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhadre Shrimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Nityanaya Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhadre Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanaya Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashitya Hati Sitarnya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jnananda Mayandana Kakrit Mataram Sarva Vidyanam Hare Kripam Prasmaya. So, I won't speak for too long because my voice is quite pretty much finished from yesterday, from Harinam. So, this verse here, Brahma is describing, as we continue to understand the glories of the Lord, this chapter specifically entitled, what is this here? Chapter 7, scheduled incarnations with specific functions. There's so many hundreds of different incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that are told and also that are untold. That is, as the Bhagavatam itself has described. So here, Lord Brahma starts to describe the opulence of the Lord, the glories of the Lord, the fame. So he has these 6 characteristics of his renunciation, his opulence, his fame, his name. All these things are glorified. But his particular name and fame, his activities are unlimited. And specifically here, Prabhupada in the purport begins this with that Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the omnipotent Personality of Godhead, has 3 primary potencies, namely the internal, external, and marginal potencies, with unlimited expansions of these 3 energies. So each potency, the Antaranga Shakti, the internal, the word for this is Antaranga, that which is internal. External is Bahiranga Shakti, and marginal is Tatashta Shakti. So these are the 3 Shaktis, energies of Krishna. Now Prabhupada describes in his purports that actually they're ultimately coming from Krishna. So they're all divine energies, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita also. Daiviyesha gunamai, that even this material nature, it is transcendental. It is coming from that Daiviyesha gunamai, that coming from that transcendental realm, ultimately. It is coming from Krishna, so it is, in one sense, it is not different from Krishna, but it plays a different role. Prabhupada gives the example of just like an electric, just like a, what do you call that? Electric house? How does he say that? Huh? A powerhouse. It has the same energy. It's electrical energy. But the electrical energy has the ability to emit heat or cold. It can be utilized to emit heat or cold. So Srila Prabhupada mentions like that. So this material world is an external energy of Krishna. So it's not that just like the Christians, there's like the devil, and then there's devil and there's God. They see that as two separate things. But we don't see it like that. The external energy of the Lord is coming from the Lord, so it has its use. It is performing a particular function, just like the electrical energy has the function of being able to exhibit heat and cold. So this external energy of the Lord, it itself, although it's said to be a fourth of the creation, in itself is also unlimited. Just like from Mahavishnu, there's unlimited innumerable number of universes coming. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport of the Srimad Bhagavatam, let me see if I can bring this up, it's not telling me exactly what verse this is here. Okay, what is this verse? Let me figure this out quickly. So this is 6:16:37. Oh, I just got rid of something. Okay, so this describes the material world and how the different levels of coverings that there are in this material world. So every universe is covered by 7 layers: earth, water, fire, air, sky, the total energy, and false ego, each 10 times greater than the previous one. There are innumerable universes besides this one, and although they are unlimitedly large, they move about like atoms in you. Therefore, you are called unlimited, Ananta. So therefore, we have Anantasesha, who is describing the unlimited glories of the Lord. Although he has 1,000 hoods, he's that glory that he speaks about the Lord is never coming to an end. So Brahma Samhita mentions some of these things here, how this comes about. Yasyeka nispasita kalam atavalambhya jivanti loma vilaja jagadanda natha vishnur mahan saiya yasya kala vishesho govindamadi purusham tamaham vajami. So the origin of material creation is Mahavishnu, who lies in the casual ocean. While he sleeps, in that ocean, millions of universes are generated as he exhales, and they are all annihilated when he inhales. This Mahavishnu is the plenary portion of Vishnu, Govinda yasya kala vishesha. The word kala refers to plenary portions of a plenary portion. From Krishna or Govinda comes Balaram, from Balaram comes Sankarshan, from Sankarshan Narayana, from Narayana the second Sankarshan, from second Sankarshan Mahavishnu, from Mahavishnu Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and from Garbhodakshai Vishnu Shirodakshai Vishnu. Shirodakshai Vishnu controls every universe. This gives an idea of the meaning of Ananta, unlimited. What is to be said of the unlimited potency and existence of the Lord? This verse describes the coverings of the universe. Saptabhir dasha gunotatrair andakoshaha. The first covering is earth, the second is water, third is fire, fourth is air, the fifth is sky, sixth is the total material energy, and the seventh is the false ego. So each covering is 10 times greater than the one before. So Krishna mentions this in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. He says in the 10th chapter that what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. The entire material world manifests only 1/4 of the Supreme Lord's energy. Therefore, he is called Ananta. So, although the material world in itself, the external energy, the Bahiranga energy of the Lord, it is partial, it is a fragment of him, but because Krishna is the unlimited, Ananta, even that fragment of the unlimited is also unlimited. So how can you understand all this? It is practically inconceivable to understand this with our material minds. And so even that external energy of the Lord in itself is complete. As Ishopanishad says, Om Purnam Adha Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vishishyate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because He is completely perfect, all emanations from Him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because He is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from Him, He remains the complete balance. So although this external energy is there, and for us it seems it's absolutely incomplete. There is what is complete in this world? Everything is temporary. Everything has an end, and every single thing that is produced of it cannot fulfill the purpose to its fullest extent. Just like this phone cannot, although we want to do so many things with it, we cannot fulfill it to the extent that we want it to. Even though it has a camera, it has a particular function, but we particularly cannot use it to the fullest that we want to. The battery dies. The camera has only a certain level of megapixels. The microphone only can reach so far. So, although it has some purpose and fulfills it to some extent, it is not complete in itself. But that which comes from Krishna directly, as we see these phenomenal world, such as this phenomenal world, am I saying that right? Phenomenal? No. Phenomenal. That's how you say it in America. Phenomenal. Oh, sorry, I can't say this. Phenomenal. Yeah, phenomenal. It gets weirder as I say it. So, that in itself is perfect because the purpose, as Srila Prabhupada comments, the purpose of it is perfect. So that which comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although seeming imperfect, actually has the perfect purpose of facilitating a place for the living entities to try to enjoy. So this enjoyment aspect actually comes from the internal energy of the Lord. And so this internal energy is said to have three categories: the Haladini Shakti, the Samvit, and then what's the other one? Sandhini Shakti. So these three potencies constitute the internal potency of the Lord. And so that's what I just closed. Okay, close this other thing. Let me bring this up here because I just accidentally closed it. So the pleasure potency, the Haladini Shakti, is what even the living entities are actually after. So here we see that Krishna exhibits his Haladini Shakti, that pleasure potency is exhibited in the spiritual world, and he enjoys that. And that is unlimited in itself, that enjoyment that is the energy of Krishna. So here Prabhupada comments in the introduction to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He mentions a few things here. That he starts this off with Radharani. This brings up the question of who Srimati Radharani is and what Radha Krishna is. Actually, Radha Krishna is the exchange of love, but not ordinary love. Krishna has immense potency, of which three are principal: the internal, the external, and the marginal potencies. In the internal potencies, there are three divisions: Sambit, Haladini, and Sandhini. The Haladini potency is Krishna's pleasure potency. All living entities have this pleasure potency, seeking potency. For all beings are trying to have pleasure. This is the very nature of the living entity. At present, we are trying to enjoy our pleasure potency by the means of the body in the material condition. By the bodily contact, we are attempting to derive pleasure from material sense objects. But we should not entertain the nonsensical idea that Krishna, who is always spiritual, also tries to seek pleasure on this material plane. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes the material world as a non-permanent place of misery, full of misery. Why then would he seek pleasure in matter? He is the super soul, the supreme spirit, and his pleasure is beyond the material conception. To learn how Krishna enjoys pleasure, we must study the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then we should study the 10th canto, in which Krishna's potency is displayed in his pastimes with Radharani and the damsels of Vraja. Unfortunately, unintelligent people turn at once to the sports of Krishna in the Dashama Shakanda, the 10th canto, Krishna embracing Radharani, or his dancing with the cowherd girls in the Rasa dance. And dance are generally not understood by ordinary men because they consider these pastimes in the light of mundane lust. They foolishly think that Krishna is like themselves and that he embraces the gopis just as ordinary men embrace a young girl. Such people become interested in Krishna consciousness. They think that his religion allows indulgence in sex. This is not Krishna's bhakti, Krishna bhakti, love of Krishna, but prakriti sahaja, material lust. To avoid such errors, we should understand what Radha Krishna is. Radha and Krishna display their pastimes through Krishna's internal energy. The pleasure potency of Krishna's internal energy is most difficult subject matter, and unless one understands what Krishna is, one cannot understand it. Krishna does not take any pleasure in the material world, but he has pleasure potency. But because we are a part and parcel of Krishna, the pleasure potency is within us also. But we are trying to exhibit the pleasure potency in matter. Krishna, however, does not make such vain attempts. The object of Krishna's pleasure potency is Radharani. Krishna exhibits his potency as Radharani and then engages in loving affair with her. In other words, Krishna does not take pleasure in external energy, but exhibits his internal energy. His pleasure potency as Radharani and then enjoys with her. Thus, Krishna manifests himself as Radharani in order to enjoy his internal pleasure potency. Of many extensions, expansions, and incarnations of Lord, this pleasure potency is foremost and chief. So, there's much more here in terms of, let me see here. So, Prabhupada is making the point here that one must understand the different energies of Krishna properly. And therefore, Chaitanya Charitamrita also says, if I haven't lost it here, okay, seems like I've lost it. It mentions that one who understands these three potencies of Krishna seriously, he cannot deny the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He cannot deny his existence. He actually understands him. He comes to the level of understanding Krishna fully. Actually, okay, here it is. Krishna Sarupa Ara Shakti Tarya Jnana Yandra Tahe Tandra Nahi Krishnate Ajnana. One who knows the real feature of Krishna and his three different energies cannot remain ignorant about him. So it is very important to understand and study these subject matters and understand it properly, just like this internal potency that is being described, the Haladini Shakti, the pleasure potency, that is what the living entities are most attracted to, as Srila Prabhupada mentions. The living entities are attracted to pleasure. Why? Because it is ultimately coming from Krishna, and the living entity himself is a part and parcel of Krishna. He constitutes, the living entity constitutes the marginal potency of the Lord, the Tatashta Shakti. But Prabhupada mentions in one place, if I could find it again, but actually he is ultimately the living entity's internal energy, but exhibited in the marginal potency. The living entity is exhibited, he resides in the marginal potency, so that the living entity has independence to choose whether he wants to love Krishna or whether he wants to try to enjoy for himself in the material world. So, as Srila Prabhupada is describing, this Haladini Shakti is very attractive to the living entity, and so they want that enjoyment. And so, just like Krishna, he is the supreme enjoyer, and Radharani is the object of that enjoyment. She is the personification of that enjoyment. And he expands himself as Radharani, and then he enjoys that potency. And so the living entity also wants to enjoy. And similarly, just like Krishna enjoys Radharani, the living entity also wants to enjoy like that. But when the living entity desires to enjoy in the same way that Krishna does, it turns into, as Bhakti Vikas Maharaj says in his, I think this might be his lectures of Shakti, where he mentions that when the living entity wants to try to enjoy like this, it turns into Durga, it turns into material energy. When the living entity wants to, the living entity wants to try to enjoy or lord over this material energy, or lord over that, wants to enjoy like Krishna, then it becomes material energy, and the living entity becomes more and more bound up in the external energy. Daivi eshu gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. So this external energy of the Lord, he becomes completely conditioned by that. So the living entity, due to his tendency to enjoy, which is ultimately coming from Krishna, because that is misplaced, that external energy plays that role of giving the living entity a place where he can try to do so. So this material world, this external energy of Krishna, is a place for the living entities to try to be Krishna. To try to play the role of Krishna. So therefore, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Trying to enjoy in the heavenly planets, trying to enjoy even in the hellish planets, there is some level of enjoyment even in the hellish planets. So the living entity, naturally geared towards enjoyment, tries to enjoy the Hladini Shakti of the Lord like the Lord does. But because of their minute nature, they cannot do so. So the living entity becomes bound up in this world due to that desire to enjoy separately from Krishna. Although the living entity is not separate from Krishna at all, that desire somehow inconceivably comes about to enjoy separate from Krishna. It's inconceivable how one can be completely satisfied in the spiritual world and decide to leave the association of Krishna and enjoy separately from him. That is the unfortunate position of the jiva. At least our unfortunate position, not all jivas. But the nitya baddha, you could say, at least those who are practically eternally conditioned, that is our position of always trying to enjoy separately from the Lord, even when we have come to a level of full satisfaction. And we see so many examples of that. How is this possible? Well, we see even people who come to Krishna consciousness and everything is perfect, there is no problem. Like so many times it's been said, the prasadam is good, the philosophy is good, the chanting and dancing, just like yesterday, when we were on Harinam, it was very ecstatic. It was full of ecstasy. You look around you and you see devotees' faces that are beaming with happiness bright, very bright faces. You see some of those pictures of book distribution like Mahotsav Prabhu and Abhimanyu Sutta Prabhu and all the other devotees that are performing. Beaming faces, experiencing high levels of ecstasy. Very great levels of happiness without the need to enjoy externally. But even though such enjoyment is there, we've seen over and over again, although that satisfaction is there of the living entity, the jiva somehow or rather tends to want to enjoy for himself, although he can become completely satisfied in his endeavor to just satisfy Krishna. So that is the unfortunate position of the living entity who is covered up by the external energy due to that want for enjoyment. So the more that living entity wants to enjoy away from Krishna, more that the living entity wants to give and act as an instrument for the enjoyment of Krishna, wants to act as a part and parcel of the Ahladini Shakti, the servant of Radharani, the servant of the gopis, the servant of those who provide pleasure to Krishna, the more the living entity becomes bound up in this material world. So, the living entity, when he starts to serve that Ahladini Shakti, when he starts to serve Srimati Radharani and her associates in the endeavor to please Krishna, then Radharani herself is satisfied, the personification of Ahladini Shakti, and that gives great pleasure to Krishna. And the living entity, as a result, or by his natural nature, becomes free from the attraction for material enjoyment. So Prabhupada often mentions that the more the one tries to enjoy, the more bound up he becomes. So the more one bound up he becomes, the further he strays away from the spiritual path of serving the Ahladini Shakti. And serving Durga, the material energy. That energy which is there, that enjoyment is there in this material world, it's exhibited, that Ahladini Shakti, you could say, is exhibited in its the reflection, the perverted form. It's very temporary. And it actually is, as even the enjoyment in this material world is actually just another form of misery, actually. As my spiritual master was mentioning is. So it's a perverted reflection. But the living entity wants to try because of the desire to become God, to be the center of everything. That, the false ego, is the most prominent. The false ego is what captures the living entity. Just like Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, above the senses is the mind, above the mind is the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the ego. In this case, for us, false ego. Falsely identifying. So, until we come to a level of proper identification, then the living entity cannot appreciate the enjoyment of the Lord, because the living entity has become envious of Krishna's enjoyment ultimately. Therefore, everybody comes, they look at those who are Mayavadis and materialists, and they see that God is a great enjoyer. They're envious of that they cannot have that. So the living entity is envious in this way. So all these energies have unlimited expansions. The Ahladini Shakti in the spiritual world, the level of enjoyment Krishna experiences is unlimited. Actually, it says, even Prabhupada mentions in one place, when I first time reading the Bhagavatam, I got to find it again, that even the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, we can't even measure the level of enjoyment. Because by the time you measure it, it's increased so much. Well, Krishna can measure it because he's God, but by the time it's measured, it's increased so much more that it requires measurement again and again and again. That is the nature of unlimited enjoyment. So Krishna enjoys in unlimited ways, in unlimited leelas with the gopis, with the cowherd boys, within Sri Vrindavan Dham, within the different realms of the spiritual world as different Vishnu, different incarnations of Vishnu. And so they are never ending. Similarly, the you could say, glories of the material world in itself are also never ending. Just like the scientists, when because they're covered up by the material energy, they can never stop discovering more things within this material world. There's never an end to discovery of this material world. There's never an end of the number of universes even within this material world. Ananta. So, the expansion of these potencies can never be calculated by anyone, because even if the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself, as the incarnation Shesha, cannot estimate the potencies, although He's been describing them continuously with 1,000 faces. So even the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the incarnation is Shesha, He cannot describe it. He can describe it, but it's just unlimitedly expanding. How can you keep up? It's just you get there and it's just gone on. It's just on and on and on. Therefore, the great sages, or Lord Brahma himself, they relish these unlimited qualities of the Lord, unlimited pastimes of the Lord. And it's not that just like, you could say, well, if you cannot describe them and they're unlimited, then why do it? You cannot estimate it, you cannot stop describing it. Just like you can't count the grains of sand on the beach. So you don't do it. Who does it? You're going to go and count all those? You will never finish, you'll never come to an end. So nobody's going to endeavor, no scientist, no sane man is going to endeavor to try to count the number of sand grains there are on the bank. But the glories of the Lord are unlimited, and they're very relishable, that it brings one great pleasure to the heart to hear and chant about the glories of the Lord. Punya Shravana Kirtana. This is in the name of Vishnu. Punya Shravana Kirtana. And it is very pleasurable to hear. As the Srimad Bhagavatam itself, when we read it, although it is sometimes, so many times you read the same pastimes, but within those same pastimes, because they are eternal, and each pastime is ever expanding, by reading it again and again, that potency of the Lord, you can start to experience the unlimited nature of Krishna, the unlimited nature of the qualities and pastimes of Krishna. Even though you're reading the same thing every day, it is very relishable, and there's new realization, fresh realization, more understanding, deeper understanding of Krishna's pastimes. And those pastimes have unlimited different varieties to them. So one can describe the nature of the Lord and the qualities of the Lord, but there will never be a point where it will stop. Just like we can only glorify for someone for some time, some great material person, he's like this, he's like this. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unlimited in qualities, can be glorified for eternity, and He is glorified for eternity, without any level. There's never a point where it's like, okay, I've heard enough about this person, I'm tired of this person. There's always deep satisfaction, as the sages in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vidura, Maitreya, all the other sages, Shiva himself, they explain and they exhibit. So when one comes to the position of this understanding the Lord and surrendering unto the Lord, and coming under the shelter of the internal potency of the Lord, coming under the shelter of this Aladini Shakti, coming under the shelter of Radharani, coming under the shelter of one's spiritual master, then he can start to relish these unlimited qualities, unlimited pastimes of the Lord that is being described. And so that starts with reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, starts with developing a proper attitude within devotional service, to hear and to have an attraction for hearing, there has to be a proper attitude of hearing. That I am becoming purified, that I need to be purified. If we're not attracted towards hearing, then there's a level we should understand that we are very puffed up in thinking that I've already heard enough. I don't need to hear anymore. I already know all this. I've already read all this. So this is kubuddhi. This is one who has his intelligence is covered by ignorance, even though he's within devotional service. Specifically, I can say that about myself. That is, the attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead will never awaken if we do not have the right attitude towards it. That when we come to a level of actually seriously desiring and looking forward to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, looking forward to hearing the descriptions of the Lord, then we can start to understand, okay, there's a level, there's purification going on. But if we are averse to it, what is the medicine? Continue hearing. The medicine is to continue hearing. Because by continuous hearing of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we will become purified at heart. This is going off something?
I think it's dying or something.
So we'll become purified at heart by constantly hearing of the Srimad Bhagavatam, as Prabhupada often he says in his song, Rajastamas Gune Era Sabayachana Vasudeva Katharuchi Nahi Prasanna. They're not attracted towards this. But if, oh my Lord, if they hear your message, if they hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, that you then will be able to awaken that. You put them under illusion, my Lord, and you can take them out of it. So I'm presenting, Prabhupada is saying practically in that thing, that I want to present this Srimad Bhagavatam to these people so that they may come out of this Rajas and Tamas. So by constant hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord, our avidya, our touch with ignorance, our covering of ignorance will become cut down. Chindante hridaya grantish, that it will be cut. That hridaya granti, that is so tight in the heart of that aversion to hearing the pastimes and the glories of the Lord. We want to hear pastimes and glories about ourselves. We want to hear other glorify us. That is also coming from Krishna, but it is the perverted nature. So when we come to that level, then we'll start to experience the bliss. Then we'll start to experience the happiness, the spontaneous devotional service will become awakened, where we have natural attraction. We don't have to force. It will be natural. And so, how do we do that? That starts by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. That starts by cleaning the floors of the temple. That starts by describing, as this is actually the verse comes. Let me bring this up so I don't butcher it. Ata Shri Krishna namadi na bhavid graha indriyahi sevan mukhi jivado swayam eva spriti adaha. Therefore, material senses cannot appreciate Krishna's holy name, form, qualities, and pastime. When a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and endeavors service by using his tongue to chant the Lord's holy name and taste the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is purified, and one gradually comes to understand who Krishna really is. So this is required. If we're in a materialistic concept of life, we'll never be able to appreciate, even if we chant them. If we're in a materialistic mindset, we'll never be able to relish or understand it. But when we're awakened to Krishna consciousness, by how, as Srila Prabhupada says, that the advancement of Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. And that attitude, what is that attitude? That we are following Rupa Goswami. That is the attitude. We are Rupa Nugas. We are following the disciplic succession of Rupa Goswami. With surrender to that disciplic succession. And so when that attitude is taken upon in Krishna consciousness, then that it is awakened. And then that service of the tongue, a rendering of the service from the tongue. It purifies one and gives one transcendental senses, by which he serves Krishna, and he's able to come to that level of real enjoyment, that which is lasting, permanent. So by performing this Harinam, by performing this book distribution, by performing this hearing of Bhagavatam with a pure motive, we may not be pure, with a pure intention in mind, then we can expect to be completely purified. We can understand we will be completely purified. We do not have to doubt. We do not have to question it at all. One can run on the path of Bhagavad Dharma, this Marg, Bhagavad Marg, with a blindfold on, because it is so clear. It is so, the path has already been set for us. We just have to follow it. So I'll end my class there. If there's any questions or comments, please feel free to ask. Hare Krishna. Anything? Yeah. You can just turn it on. Huh? Is there any questions at all? No? Mataji's? Anything online? Huh? You can,
Just a comment, yeah.
there's a comment. You can read the comment if you like, if it's not like.
So true, Chandanacharya Prabhu.
You can say it in the mic.
Oh, yeah.
I guess they can read it too, but.
So true, Chandanacharya Prabhu. Beautiful faces like photos of BG is so amazing.
Mm. Yeah, just like there's beaming faces.
Oh.
Beaming faces, probably. So, yeah, okay. Is Ram, you have a question?
What? Hare Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
So, what makes the difference between the Ladini Shakti, or when you were talking about like the Lord internal potency, compared to Maya? I mean, like Durga.
To Durga,
Yeah.
which is the external energy. It's
But-
temporary. It's
But
the
what
provided.
makes it so? What makes that for a devotee or someone who's practicing serving one of those energy?
I don't understand the question.
So, for example,
You understand the question?
no.
I don't know what you're saying.
So there's an internal potency of the Lord and there's
Uh-huh.
external potency. What is the difference between those two? Because it's considered to be one, technically speaking.
It's coming from Krishna, yeah, but it has different purposes, like I said. Yeah, one, just like Prabhupada says, one exhibits heat and one exhibits cold, right? The same electrical energy can be utilized to exhibit heat or cold. So it has different purpose to it. Cold is for what? So you can cool in the summer, and the heat is for winter. So it has a different purpose. Like we're talking about how the Ishopanishad says, even this world is complete because it's created for the purpose of facilitating giving the living entity facility to try to enjoy for himself. You know? So
This is what I was trying to get at, is because like a lot of time it just depends on how you serve, that determines that energy in which you're
but serving the external energy means like you're under illusion.
enjoying. Yeah.
It's illusion. So if you're asking, well, why can't we serve the material energy? Because there's illusion. Who's a servant of the external energy? Well, the karmis and the jnanis also, actually, to some extent, to a great extent. So the external energy is becoming a servant of the external energy, although it is the energy of Krishna. Actually, the devotee, he even sees that as, he uses that in Krishna service. So the enjoyment mentality, like I was mentioning, how when the living entity has that enjoying mentality for himself, then it turns, Prabhupada often says, it turns into external energy. Actually, Prabhupada says it's all spiritual. But when we are conditioned and have that idea of that I am the enjoyer, then it becomes this external. Then it turns into Durga.
When it's not in the service of the Lord, then it becomes your
then
servant.
it's purified, just like our vehicles, their computers, all these things. We see them as Balaram. We see it is Balaram. The Mridanga is Balaram. This computer itself is serving Krishna. So it's all this is Balaram. This is Balaram's energy. This Balaram is facilitating Krishna's pastimes through paraphernalia. So, but if I start to use this computer for my sense enjoyment, then becomes illusion, and it becomes external energy. So it's the devotees, or a person's proper mood and attitude of servitorship towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if that's not present, then it's material. If that loving service is not present, then it's material.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is that kind of like where your question lied? Basically, like
It's going
that
towards
the
it.
material
That's
energy
it,
is also
that's
the spiritual.
That's it. One other thing I wanted to ask. You was expressing this when one is performing devotional service, how ecstatic they feel, and you was giving an example of Abhimanyu and Mahasa Prabhu, and being on books. How
Yeah, also the
amazing
Harinam.
anybody,
Yeah.
anybody,
Whoever is
anyone, any
cooking,
devotee,
cleaning, all these things.
But the thing is that one might hear this and they might think it's the activity, like that result is what actually determined that happiness, and they get caught up in that. But actually, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, what do you exactly mean? What's the
can you determine one's
happiness by the number of books you distributed? Is that what
by
you're
the
saying?
results, basically? But
Yeah.
the results is up to Krishna.
Yeah.
Is the endeavor actually in which we put in to serve him, rather than the results in which we get.
But just like devotees, they feel more and more ecstasy when they glorify the Lord more. Although it is not dependent on result, it's not at all. But when you glorify the Lord, yes, there's more ecstasy. Yes. But externally, the materialist will see it as, okay, because he distributed this many books, he made this much money. Therefore, he is happy. But because, again, for them, that enjoyment, it seems to be material. Because they're covered by ignorance. For someone who is covered by a lens, let's say, if I have glasses that are pink, the whole world is pink for me. So one who is foolish thinks, for him also the world is pink. He's also seeing pink like this. So similarly, these rascals, those who are materialists, they think, okay, these people are only enjoying because they're making money. If they didn't make money today, they wouldn't be so happy. So it's just that, again, it's the false, the illusory nature of the jiva to see things like that. But yeah, the devotee is definitely experiencing more pleasure by glorifying the Lord more. So that's where the pleasure comes from. It's the glorification of the Lord. It's not that we're distributing the book, getting the money, therefore we're happy. No, we are happy because, my Lord is becoming more glorified. There's more jivas taking the books of Krishna. They're touching Krishna. How glorious is that? And the fact that the jiva gives up, he believes that this body is his and that money is his, and he gives him that when he gives that money to the Sankirtan devotee, he has given a part himself to Krishna. That's what that is. That is ecstatic. That is relishable. That is, you start to experience maddened like ecstasy. You become mad, and you do that all day to, and you're doing it. And we were watching those pictures come in, and at one point I couldn't because I was in Harinam, and then I was with the bhaktas, I couldn't see it, and then I looked at it at the end of the night, and it's just like, I can't count the number of books that are going out right now. So, it is ecstatic, and if we don't distribute so many books, yes, sometimes we become like, oh man, why? Because we want to glorify our Lord. And that level of thing that made be there. I didn't distribute enough books today. We couldn't distribute books. And that's not the same thing as the disappointment of a materialist. That disappointment is also on a spiritual platform. It's not that it's all enjoyment in the spiritual world. It is. But there's enjoyment is also derived through great levels of anxiety, depression, disappointment. So there is many varieties of enjoyment in the spiritual world. So, but people cannot understand this. That's a verse. When one has material senses, when one has materialistic view, he cannot understand the glories of the Lord, the name, the pastimes of fame. He cannot understand at all. So book distribution, Harinam, like people are looking at us. They think we just do this once in a while. They think, oh, this is coming by. They have no conception that we're doing this all the time. Like you saw them, some of them dance with us. And they become very happy. And then right back into the pool of material existence, walking around with, oh yeah. And it's their festival, it's not our festival. That's not our festival, that's their festival. They're meant to be enjoying. So how come these people with orange robes and white robes coming and beaming faces, dancing, they're not trying to enjoy the meat, they're not trying to enjoy the music. But they think, oh, it's just a one-time thing. Oh, this is coming out here, they'll go back to their sad lives, just like we do. But no, we'll go back home, chant and dance more, wake up early in the morning, chant the glories of the Lord. Inconceivable. And even when they come and experience, they think, oh man, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? Because they're experiencing is every single happiness they've experienced ends. So one cannot understand with the blunt material senses. Only when one is purified, then he can start to become fearless of that my enjoyments, this happiness, this blissfulness that we're experiencing in Krishna consciousness is never going to end. That's why people leave also. They think, oh, it has an end. They're not telling me where it ends. People think that this is just some temporary thing and it'll end. It's just some situation right now. But I have to figure out my own situation. I have to gather my own situation. Then I'll be happy. I'll figure it out. They cannot trust the process. Anything else? Is that Mahotsav, Prabhu?
All right, you're live.
Pranam, Prabhu, I tried to call you. But I think your phone was on do not
just bring
disturb
it
or
in.
something. But
Give me your phone. Wait 1 second, Prabhu. Go ahead.
I was thinking of this point, that materialists, like you were saying, the scientists, there's no end to how much research work they do, that they find and keep finding, and they're enamored by this and enamored by that. Mm-hmm. That's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, by knowing this, you will know all that is to be known.
Uh-huh.
And all we need to know about this material world is two things. What are the two things we need to know about the material world?
Dukhalayam ashashvatam.
That's it. And Krishna says this point twice in the Bhagavad Gita. He says once Dukhalayam ashashvatam, and then in the next chapter he says Anityam asukam dokam, which means exactly what it is. It's exactly the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's all that we need to know about this material world. It is temporary and full of misery. That's all we need to know, and whatever other practical work that we need to do. But the materialists are so absorbed in being their body that they do so much research work as to hope that they can keep this body forever. Mm-hmm. But it never happens.
Yeah.
It never happens, and then they just end up screwing themselves over even more.
Yeah.
It's like the history of material life is the history of, and it's like thing is, and what do we learn from history that you don't learn from history?
What is that?
What do you learn from history?
I don't. Wait, hang on. You dropped out and.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, say that again.
The only thing we learn from history is that we don't learn from history.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And the materialists, they keep going on and on, trying the same thing, chewing the chew, trying it this way, trying it that way, But the result is the same, they're suffering. And they're never going to find an end to their so-called goals and all this stuff, So anyway, I was just thinking of that point that you were making, this point about research and all this, But as far as we're concerned, even when the books don't go out, we only get more fired up to keep trying harder, when the books are slow, the bookstores are slow, we're not shooting as many books as we did last week. It only gets us more fired up to do more next week, to make up more for it, because we want to see Krishna satisfied. We want to see Krishna glorified, And what's enough? Nothing is enough. Nothing is enough, Like, it's never that devotees come to a point where they think, okay, we've glorified Krishna enough, let's go and do something else. It's not like that,
Right.
The glorification of Krishna is itself so intoxicating that you get personally in touch with the internal potency of the Lord,
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
And you can't call me because it's on my phone is the one that's doing the live stream.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'll call someone else next time.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Did the Matajis have any questions? No? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpatarvesha kripa, Sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanibhyo Vishnabhibhyo namo namaha.